I am Alfred Greg Abreu III. My dad was Alfred Gregorio Abreu, and he was a junior. And then my grandfather was Alfred Gabriel Abreu, senior. So we're all Alfred G. Abreu, but we're not all Alfred Greg Abreus, but throughout the years. Anyway, but born and raised Honolulu, Hawaii, born in 1950, Kapi'olani. At that time, I guess it was called Maternity Hospital. Two siblings, older brother Charles Jerry, born in 43, and a sister Patricia Ann, born in 47, and then me, born in 1950. My mom was Oahu, Honolulu girl, initially born and raised in Kalihi, the corner of School Street and Cam Ford Road. I think there's a Texaco service station there now, but that's where she lived in Kalihi. And then her family, her and her 9 siblings, went and moved on Waialua, Mokuleia. My dad was also one of 10. He was one of the older boys, not the oldest. It's a Kauai boy. And moved to Oahu, met my mom. We got married in the territory of Hawaii. All public school for all of us. We all 3 children went to Kapa Lama Elementary, Sanford Ballard Dole Intermediate, and Wallace Ryder Farrington High School. Of the 3 of us, I was the only one to almost graduate from college, but I left to get a job. I graduated in '68 and went to UH Manoa, where I met Larry and other Hawaiian activists, quote unquote. So,
Can you talk about your first meeting with Larry?
first meeting with Larry was in class. Larry was my Religion 101 teacher. And it must have been my freshman year. And you know the radical difference between high school, where you can kind of hide behind your desk, you sit in the last row, and teachers primarily just want to pass you so they don't get you again next year. But when you go to college, everybody is called upon to contribute. So you just kind of sit in the back of the class and hope that the semester passes you by. You know, so when you, I think for most local kids, when you come from high school to college, it's a really eye-opening environment. We actually call upon yourself to reflect on your past and how you feel about various things. And, you know, kind of Larry gave us an insight as to everybody's opinion is valuable. And it doesn't really matter how you label yourself religious-wise or ethnically or nationally, but that everybody through their spirit, soul, however you want to identify it, as something unique to contribute to his environment. I think that's basically what a lot of us came away from sitting with Larry at his class and understanding what he was trying to tell us and what we got from it. He's trying to tell us to be ourselves, I think, you know, to be true to ourselves and not block ourselves off from any perspective, opinion, you know, to take everything into consideration. Not to be wishy-washy, but, you know, to have a more rounded cultural appreciation, especially in Hawaii, since we're at the kind of crossroads where you encounter all different kinds of people, get also all different sorts of thoughts and opinions on things. And Larry just kind of told us to open ourselves up to the experience. Not put any, don't fabricate any blockages on your own, you know, to restrict yourself from experiencing what you can. I think, you know, I expressed that my mom's family moved down to the country on Oahu. And from a young age, I always look forward to going down to Mokuleia and spending time with my mom's extended family. And, besides Portuguese, there are Hawaiian members of the family, Filipino, Puerto Rican, Chinese, all the mixes that we have in Hawaii. So you want to only expose to one ethnic group, it's the whole melting pot thing. And when my grandfather had his annual birthday parties, there's a lot of music. There's country music, there was Borinqui music, Kachi Kachi, Puerto Rican music, and lots of Hawaiian music. And I think a lot of my appreciation for music stems from those experiences. Plus the fact, you help with the emo. And as small kids, you don't really do that much. But you surely wait for the chicken wire with all the crisp pork to come out of the emo so you can stand on the side of the fence and pick at it and eat it, So I think that was one of the things that influenced me young, was just a multi-ethnic group of family and a very strong appreciation for music and the appreciation of leisure. Just to sit down and talk stories with family and friends and enjoy it for what it's worth. We didn't have all the electronics that the kids have today. So you found fulfillment in, I think, more basic, true-to-life experiences than finding it in other ways that I think today doesn't require much personal interaction. You interact with the internet or your chat group or your Facebook group or whatever it is, and you don't even know if half of these people are real or not. That was important to me. And then the fact that growing up as the youngest of 3 children, music's always been very important to me, and that I had the musical experiences of my older brother, who grew up in a kind of doo-wop type of music. It was the Five Satins and the Elgins and all the rest of these groups. My sister came around, as Elvis was the thing, right? And plus all the other teenage stars at the time. And then with my parents, listening to their songs that they grew up with. And then me coming around in the 60s, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Where you had a lot of, the Beatles and the whole British invasion thing, and a lot of music from yesteryear being embraced by the youth of the moment. I came to have I think, a deeper appreciation of the evolution of music and the different types of music they are. Then it's easier today to just focus narrowly on one particular aspect of music, and that's what you like. Because when I started in radio, it was broadcasting, right? Broadcasting. You try to appeal to as many people as possible, whereas now, with podcasts and all the rest of it, it's narrow casting. You throw your net into a small little area of an audience. So you can take rap music and there's urban rap and new rap and all the rest of that. Whereas when we grew up and we listened to the radio, everything was on the radio. Because I had like 5 radio stations and 3 TV stations. But I guess those are some of the elements that made me who I am today. Gave me perspective. Well, I never lived in the country. My grandparents lived in the country. A lot of my uncles were ranchers. We ranched on Dillingham Ranch, Dillingham Estate. Living in Kalihi was sort of like living in the country. I don't know what year Liki Highway came around, but you could drive up Kalihi Street and there'd be truck farms, pig farms, people with paddocks with horses and cattle, and not Kalihi nowadays. I think Kalihi nowadays is Little Manila, right? So Kalihi was still very rural at the time, and it was sort of a semi-rural lifestyle. But I really appreciated the moments when we all packed up and went down to Mokulia for a week or 3 days or whatever it was. Growing up in Kalihi and attending Farrington High School was an experience where you have to get to know how to get along with all different levels of socioeconomic status. You know, from the people who lived in the housing projects, to the middle class people, to the working class people, to a few people that I guess were upper middle class. You know, their parents were doctors and dentists and what have you, but chose to send their kids to public school instead of to Iolani or, you know, wherever it may be. And so there was a broad cross spectrum of the community that you had to interact with. You know, Japanese, Pot Hawaiians, Portuguese, Filipinos, Chinese, Puerto Ricans, the whole group. That was the good experience of growing up in Kali, that it's a cross-ethnic representation of everybody that lived in Hawaii. Wasn't athletic, was too small. My interests were music. I took band for 6 years. I took 3 years at Dole and 3 years at Farrington, and I played the clarinet. In hindsight, I wish I played the saxophone. I'd be touring right now. Went to University of Hawaii, UH Manoa. And during 68, 69, there was an increase in America's military presence in Southeast Asia, with incursions into Laos and Cambodia, besides the ungodly things we were doing to the Vietnamese at the time. So I would attend rallies and, you know, read handouts, and still very naive politically. You know, coming from a high school where none of that you were exposed to. I don't know if they hid it from us or they just didn't feel we were at a level where we could make heads or tails out of it. But when you go to college, all of that's for you if you want it. It's there. And any kind of question you want to ask about whatever subject it is, there's somebody who's got an opinion about it. So there were rallies that took us from right behind the university campus center, and then we'd march down to Andrews Amphitheater, and then there'd be a rally with all these different speakers. I think Noel Kent was, I remember him being one of the people that was often present at these rallies and things. And you couldn't meet somebody who was anti-military America's presence around the world and not have them also have some perspective or opinion about what was happening in Hawaii as well. So besides the printouts and the material you encountered that dealt with Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia, somebody also would hand you a handout of, hey, this is what's happening in Kalama Valley. You know, and then you'd go to class and you'd discuss that with people in class. I think Larry's class was one of them that we had discussions and input in regards to that. And it was sort of like an open invitation that if you wanted to go into the valley and talk to people and see how you could contribute in some sort of way. And that was my initial involvement in getting into Kalama. Was feeling that, hey, you want to go? You can. You know, anybody can go and talk to somebody and see if there's a role there for you somehow. Boy, Terry Lee, Keko'olani, right? Her, even though they weren't students, they were present on the UH campus a lot. You know, people like Kalani Ohelo and Soli Niheo. And then Guy Fujimura is a fellow alumnus along with I of Farrington. Isn't he with one? Isn't he with a union? He's Secretary of Treasury, ILWU. You know, so Guy was active in various movements on campus. But later on, I came to understand, in embracing the group Kokua Hawaii, that there were two basic political perspectives on the local struggles. And one was the Kokua Hawaii organization, and the other one, we just referred to them as the house. I don't know, they had this communal house in Kaimuki, I think it was, you know, and they had one perspective. And at that time, there were words utilized in the discussion that I had no idea or reference to, you know. Trotskyists and Marxist-Leninism and things like that, because I was just naive, ignorant, you know. When they said Karl Marx, I went, is he related to Groucho, Chico, and Harpo? No, 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 Al, you got a long ways to go. You know, but it was eye-opening to read this literature and go, gee, what, you know, it's written at a particular time in history, you know, but those that were more well-versed in politics at the time tried to make it relevant to us so we could see how it could apply to our struggles in Hawaii. I can't precisely put what it was that made me say, tomorrow I'm going into the valley. But myself, a friend of mine from Kali, Dwight Yoshimoto, and a couple others decided that instead of talking about it on campus, remember Burke Matsuyama was another individual. He's in Kona now, he and Bob. So besides just relating to it on campus, it was like, okay, you know, put your money where your mouth is, man. If you're going to do something, you actually have to be out there. You know, so hold all your questions and your questions of perspective and tactics and whatever, and go out to Kalama Valley and talk to people and finding out what's going on, and if it appeals to you, find some way you can hopefully be of benefit. But like I said, I was politically ignorant at the time. So after, I guess people came and gone, and it was kind of like a whittling project, you know, who remains and who doesn't see any value in it. Then we started having study groups. Well, we not only studied, you know, political thought, we studied Hawaiian history. And then we tried to understand what were happening in different communities on the island that we could apply our zeal and our knowledge to. And I think out of Kalama Valley came like Oda Camp and Halava Housing and, you know, a whole bunch of other efforts as well. So initially it was a very eye-opening educational experience. My dad passed when I was 12. I don't think he would have approved it at all. He was a guard at Halava jail. And before that, he was a guard at the old Iwilei jail, downtown Honolulu. So I wouldn't say he was a law and order kind of man, but just for annoying my dad. I don't think he would have stopped me from doing it, but I wouldn't have had his blessing. You know, my mom was more of a free spirit. You know, like, if this is where your interest is, go. Stay safe and give me a call every few days. Let me know you're alive, you know. So my mom was more go out and experience the world. Maybe she didn't quite understand what was going on herself, but being a local person from a lumpen working class community, I think she could relate in various ways as to what was happening with the local people in āina and Neo Valley and Kalama, and it was just a continuation of these struggles that had been going on for years. So I think I went in with my mom's blessing. I still was living at home. My brother was supportive. My sister, I don't think she's even to this day very politically aware. So I don't think I got one way or another from her. And my brother was curious, short of being committed, you know. So he wanted to stay on the outside, but he was very interested as to what was transpiring in the valley and what our next steps were going to be. And then when it actually came time for the eviction, and we climbed up on the roof, and the cops came in riot gear, and he had snipers on both ridges, and, you know, it was a big thing. My brother's interest peaked at that time, because now it was going to be something that was going to be taken through the courts. You know? And I think that piqued a lot of people's interest in Hawaii, when it didn't become just this little struggle in a group of hippie students from the University of Hawaii making noise about something, but now it's actually going to transpire into the legal apparatus of the state, you know, where we have the ability to present our case, so to speak. I think all of the things you touched on, you know, I think the fact of locals getting together with locals was one aspect of it. the fact that you had a common history, the fact that Kalama Valley wasn't new. This is the same thing happening in a different area. And I don't think for a majority of us that went into the valley, we really had a good understanding of Hawaiian history. And I think the fact that our involvement in Kalama Valley provided us an opportunity to learn and to hear different people's perspectives. Because even Hawaiian history has so many different sides to it. So, and I think was an opportunity. Remember now, this is like the beginning of what they referred to as the Hawaiian Renaissance. And Hawaiian artists were presenting music in a different way, and there was a battle to establish the ethnic studies program at the University of Hawaii, and there were a lot of things happening outside of campus, outside of a classroom, that enticed people to want to embrace their past, to understand aspects of their history besides just the generic term Hawaiian history, of understanding their own ethnic study history, of how their family came here and what conditions they met on the travel here, besides what conditions they met when they got to Hawaii. And by having so many people from UH, professors as well as students who were versed in various elements, you could pick a lot of people's brains, different people's attitudes, ideas, and knowledge. And that's what kind of enthused me to want to stay in the valley throughout it, because every day I was there, I think I learned something new. For those of us that didn't stay in the valley the whole time, we went home or we went class and then we came back to the valley. It was always, when you guys come back, bring 20-pound rice, or buy a case of corned beef, or, whatever it was. And I think at that time, Hayes Guard Service had already had the valley, the access blocked off. So we went further down towards Sandy Beach, got dropped off on the highway, and then made our way in through the bushes. And then got to the guard check, the first guard check before you got into the valley. So, yeah, that was kind of like roughing it, feeling like you're playing this military game, not only with Hayes Guard Service or with the Hawaii Police Department as well, because they didn't want us to valley at all. And then another thing that resonates with me still to today is when we knew we were getting evicted, and we knew when the troops were going to come in and get us out, we threw a big luau. Yeah, everybody in the valley took part. All the families that resided in the valley took part. Everybody who would come and go would bring something. And we had a big luau when we invited Hayes Guard Service and we invited the police department to come and pa'ina with us, knowing that in a few days we'd all have to take our particular positions and see this thing out, And it was quite a thing for me to look at a table and see police officers, security officers, and people from our steering committee all sitting down together and not yelling and screaming at each other, but just talking about the situation, because it already had come down to the point where it was inevitable. No, I don't know how many police officers are there, but there were representatives from the police department. I think it was frowned upon within the police department to associate with these future criminals in Kalama Valley. But Hayes Guard Service, it's like I'm a guard at security at the airport. We're not really truly police. So I think Hayes Guard Service was hired by bishops to keep people out of the valley. So they were more like us than a police department. And when the police finally came in, I would say 90% of the police were Hawaiians, and part Hawaiian. And they didn't know what to expect. I think the morning we knew that they were coming in, we got up, we had breakfast, we discussed what we were going to do. Like, scrambled eggs and sticky rice and spam and Portuguese sausage and whatever was left over from the night before. But then we had a powwow that morning, and people who didn't want to go up on the roof were asked to sit around the perimeter of the house. Roseanne Ng was the one of them, I believe, and then like people like Kalani and John Saxon and Furman, and there were some very hefty Hawaiian brothers that were up on the roof, and we pulled the ladder up with us, so that when the cops came in, they had to have their own ladders and what have you to come up and get us. And the big guys weren't offering any help to the police department to get them off the roof. To this day, I don't know how they got Kalani off the roof. 5, 6, 8, 10 of them to carry him down on the ladder as well. But we were kind of taken back by the fact that the cops came in their cars and they opened up their trunks and they had riot gear. You know, and then we looked up on the ridges, one ridge Hawaii Kai side and the other ridge Sandy Beach side, and they had snipers on both the ridges. So they didn't know what to expect either. Kind of like one of the first times in Hawaii where people actually stood up and said, "You don't have to come and kick us out, arrest us, or kill us, because we're going to stay here until whatever happens." You know? So they came in not knowing whether they have to subdue us with gas or heavy force or whatever, but we didn't give them any choice. We were on the roof and somebody said, "All the guys, take off your shirts so that they know we're not concealing anything. We're not concealing weapons of anything." And I said, "What about the Wai'nis? They don't need to take off their shirt." And I think in a matter of a couple of hours, they came in. We were off the roof. 2, 3 people in a squad car. We were taken to the main police headquarters downtown Honolulu, processed for criminal trespass. Somebody posted our $50 bail bond, whatever it was. And then we started our way through district court. And that was a whole other thing, the trial. Another eye-opening educational process.
So you guys were on top of the roof. How long were you on the roof?
Couple hours, 2, 3 hours maybe.
What were you guys talking about?
You're talking about 40-something years ago, brother, you know. I think by that time it wasn't tactics, so it was just, you know, how come you ate all the spam for breakfast, man? You never know how long some spam to. You know, so it was more, I don't know, trying to create some kind of lighthearted mood. That this was it, it was all coming down. We had no really effect on what path law enforcement was going to take. The only thing we could control is the way we reacted. So we just wanted to be as calm, I guess, as we could. But definitely affect certain people from getting rather boisterous. That's an interesting one, because by the time it got down to me, was this is what we're going to do. So I guess the decision was made within directing groups within Kokua Hawaii that I wasn't privy to. When you're talking about harmony, yeah, a little while ago, the whole thing wasn't harmonious. You know, anytime you get a situation heightened to this point, politics, social, economic-wise, and strong personalities, you're not going to have total harmony. But you can have everybody that is certain of what they believe is going to try to influence everybody else. So there were moments of a calm being needed, you know, and there were certain more sober, adult, mature heads that took more control at those times. You know? I wasn't part of any kind of directing group. Only groups I was like study groups, you know, or work groups. You know, and everything. When I came in, all the directorships and who was leadership roles were already defined. You know, so we came in kind of like as a support group. You know? And at times there was, in Portuguese, you get this word called garut. You know, you beat a garut means go get this, go get that, make sure that's closed. Yeah, on your way out, blah, blah, blah. So it's like you felt more like a gopher. You know, go for this, go for that. You felt you were doing it for a good cause, but then at times it made you kind of kick back and reflect as how important is my feelings? even though it's an uninformed, uneducated, opinion as to what's going on, I felt at times our opinions, the neophytes, weren't really taken into consideration.
So you were part of that work group. You know,
Yeah, pretty much, Uh-huh.
like closing the door, getting water.
Oh, we weeded and we planted. I think we started vegetable gardens, and we had all kind of things going that would create a sense of community. Oh, helping George slop his pigs. Even after the eviction, we had worksheets that you wanted to take a day, and meet George at a certain place and then go and pick up the slop. And I think one of the places he had them was Waimanu Homes, up Pearl City side. And we're going to slop the pigs up there, and so we did that for several years after the eviction took place. One of the most ornery, opinionated Portuguese I've known, and I am Portuguese. I am part Portuguese. I've met a lot of Portuguese, but George, to his credit, he spoke his mind. He could have at times considered how it would impact people nearer him, but like I said, the heightened emotion at the time, hard to say. I want to say this, but I can't, and I got to say it using these words, and who am I going to offend and everything. So George would just let it fly, and I think that's what endeared him to a lot of people, that he was adamant, he was vocal, he was very strong in what he believed. And he wasn't afraid to put his actions where his mouth was. There was nothing George would suggest needed to be done that George wouldn't do himself. From what I remember, Kalani Ohelo, John Furman, John Saxton, Ray Catania, Rene Kajikawa, Larry, Kamakawiwo'ole, and somebody who doesn't get much notice. And he wasn't there all the time, but Kahuna Lapa'au Sam Lono, who was a very strong spiritual force with us. And after Kalama Valley, he was still helping Kokua Hawaii in a lot of different ways. Not only the fact of his knowledge as being a Hawaiian medical and Ho'opono practitioner, but the fact that he was a very decent, warm, moral man. And I think for the kupuna out in television land who would see us every evening or read the newspaper in the evening, having someone of his stature really assisted us in what we did, because people had such great respect for Sam. In working with George Santos, actually going on a slop run with him, I think you got to know George as well as anybody could, because whatever adversity there was in retrieving his slop, in the equipment not working at Waimanu Homes, George didn't mince any words. He let you know in no uncertain words how he felt about various things. And George was a very intelligent man. So he not only had feelings about what was happening in Kalama Valley, but he too was a product of being kicked out from Waialae Kahala to āina to Niu Valley, and he started writing on the wall as to what was happening to Hawaii's people and what was attracting people from elsewhere in the world to move to Hawaii. They could afford the housing, we couldn't. We could afford building, we could build a house. A lot of locals have carpentry, construction skills. You can, like these prime developments up and down the Kona coast, local residents can afford it, but you're going in and trim their trees, and you can do their landscaping for them, and you can help build their home. But can you go into Kukio or Kohanaiki and buy a $7, $10, $15 million home? It's just ridiculous. None of us had the long foresight that you can, 2020 vision. We saw all this thing happening. We saw the blueprint, as to what actually was happening and what Hawaii was setting up itself for. When I went into Kalama Valley, I appreciated Hawaiian music, but I never played much Hawaiian music myself. And Liko Martin was in the valley. I don't think he was a constant presence, but he would come into the valley periodically, kind of like me. And I was there one night, and Liko, after we got through eating dinner and cleaning up and whatever it is, be like Kani Kapila, talk story time. So some people would get together and talk about this and that, and Liko would sit with his guitar and he'd tune it to a slack key, and I never was involved in presenting Hawaiian music. I guess I was, because I worked at University FM station. So, but performing it myself, ukulele, guitar, what have you. And Liko is just so fluid, man. He'd get up there and he'd tune his guitar down, and he'd play Waimanalo blues and other stuff that he was doing at the time, and then he'd play old Hawaiian standards, and it was just so effortless. Just kind of fluid. It was like, as we now say, from the na'au. It just came from the na'au, and it just flowed out through his fingertips, and it really enthused me to want to pick up guitar and learn to play kiho'alo and get more adept at playing ukulele and going back and embracing the whole Hawaiian catalog, so to speak. Kind of like what Eddie did. There's one guy that, just so valuable to the Hawaiian community that he went out and researched all this old stuff and not only documented it, but brought it back to life, and enthused today's artists, to embrace it. But I don't remember any other artists. Probably there were, but Liko really stuck out to me as not only being Hawaiian and prolific as a songwriter, but just being so natural, He just kind of like oozed out of his pores. Richards family? Black Richards, and was Louis part of that family? Big old man Louis. He wasn't part of the Richards family, was he? But he was another resident in the valley, right? When I got there, there weren't too many local families left. Some of them, I think, were given alternate places to live. So they felt like if we don't take this now, and if we wait till push comes to shove, we may not get anything. Whereas, like the Richards family and Louis, they didn't have any place to go. Richards family had a junkyard type business, with old cars and stuff. They didn't have any place offered to them. They could take all of their, merchandise, so to speak. So they had to stick it out, and the writing was on the wall that everybody was going to go. So Black sat in front of the house. He and Roseanne, a few other people. Most of us were on the roof. And there were maybe half a dozen people sitting around the exterior of the home. But I think if you ask the majority, from what I realized in getting this reunion and cataloging people's oral histories and remembrances of the time, I hear from people who are coordinating this that there are some people who were involved back at that time don't want to have anything to do with this. And I really cannot understand, because, if it's bad blood that existed at that time, shit, it's been going on 50 years. If you hold a grudge that long, I don't know, it's not natural to me. I think, everybody gave a little bit, everybody benefited a little bit, everybody grew a little bit. So, none of us are, the shrapnel impacted everybody, as the struggle grew and sparks flew. Nobody was exempt from having an impact and change their life in good, bad, or indifferent. So I don't understand why some of us don't want to come around today and offer a couple of thoughts or reflections or whatever. Seems kind of counterproductive to what we were trying to happen back then. So that's something that maybe will come out in the wash and learn, and what I can offer. And then as you grew to understand the more statewide and national and worldwide implications of what was happening, you could become more effective in what you were doing a little later on down the road. I guess one of my key desires at the time was to get the word out to as many people as possible. You know, through the press, through radio, television, what have you. And for most of the time the trial was going on, I mean, Larry can correct me if I'm wrong, we were front page news. You know, we were one of the lead stories on TV news at night. So I think that's one of the reasons why when it got to the end of the district court trial, that we had so much to say and there was so much media coverage that Bishop Estate pulled the charges, dropped it all, and sent us on our way. Because we were bringing up things that went back to the arrival of Captain Cook. You know, we were talking about the mahele. We were talking about land use in Hawaii. You know, we were talking about Bishop Estate and Kamehameha School trustees. And I think for the powers that be, it became a little too much exposure for them and a reflection on what they were doing in Hawaii. So they had their way, said Kamehameha Schools, pull the charges, and that's enough media exposure for the time being. Because I don't think any of the media exposure Bishop Estate got was beneficial for them. And it was all beneficial for us. So it was in their benefit to just end it all. It never went away. It just manifested itself in different communities and in different ways. No matter what the odds, you have an opportunity to make an impact. Maybe not necessarily stopping the development. You can alter it in various ways. This development here, supposed to be real close to the shoreline, but due to people's actions through the government, through the appropriate channels, development was taken way back from the shoreline. Military spending some money. Yeah. But I don't know, for Kalama Valley, 1971? 1971? And for kids today in school, if they were to study Kalama Valley, you know, what would be a reason for a teacher to have that as part of her lessons? Okay, we're going to study Hawaiian history and we're going to study blah, 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 and Kalama Valley in 1971. How many students would know Kalama Valley? Where's that? What's that? And what through a Department of Education curriculum would they want to present? You know, as far as me, it's like what I said. You know, no matter what the odds, you still got a chance to influence it in some sort of way, whether it's just continuing with a certain thought, mode of participation, tactics, education, history, what have you. You can come out ahead even if the whole object is not met. There's a lot of positive results from Kalama Valley. And I think for all of us that participated in Kalama Valley, we can look back and go that we're better, more informed, well-rounded, educated than we were if we hadn't participated. There's limited land in Hawaii. Don't let them develop it all. And find people of like mind and try to see what kind of impact you can have. I've been here since '77. As I was telling Larry, when I moved here, there was one stoplight between Kona and Hilo. It was on the corner of Palani and Kuakini. After you pass that stoplight, the next stoplight was when you cross the bridge to go to Hilo. So everything else, there was King Kamehameha Hotel, Kona Village, and Mauna Kea Beach. Everything else in between came later. So I've walked the trails, I've camped on the beaches, I've swam in the ponds, I've seen the heiaus and the ahu, and I've seen it disappear under bulldozers. You know, a whole different core of people being invited to come and move and live in Hawaii. You know, but what do they know before they get here? And what are they interested in knowing once they get here? They live behind their gate at their fancy development. And most of them are not really interested in learning much about Hawaii. It's for us to like to cater to them. They're entitled in some certain way because of the money they carry in their pocketbook. So I've seen the Kona coast change. You know, but on Oahu, there's still a lot of development out there. A lot of areas that should be protected that aren't, but they're still fighting about how much of it they still should protect. There's an area past Sandy Beach, right? They protected Sandy Beach. Now there's another area past Sandy Beach that the county or whatever is still trying to get their act together about what are they going to do with that. They're going to put townhouses, or is it going to be an open area? Wherever you are in Hawaii, you're under assault, sort of like, so be informed, and if you can do something, try. Don't feel defeated before you even started. What's the future? I don't know. You can go back on the Akaka bill, right? How it split the Hawaiian community. They always say there's two sides to a story. There's not only two sides. It's like there's only good and bad, or there's only God and the devil. There's only Democrats and Republicans. There's a lot of sides to the story, but that was a heightened issue that people felt like they had to have some perspective, some opinion on. And there'll always be issues like that impacting Hawaii. So you cannot be an ostrich and put your head in the sand. There's something going to be impacting your community soon. So you got to pay attention to what's going around you. If you hear something, what's happening on Maui or Kauai, take interest, because the same thing can happen in your neighborhood as well. And it's easy. Once it's gone, it's gone. Years ago down in Keho, when they were developing Keho, they told one developer that he needed to add some permanence to the Hawaiian trails. So he paved it over with asphalt. And the county allowed him to do that. So yeah, the trail's still there, but it's not there. It's under asphalt. Or it's under a golf course, whatever have you. So much of our Hawaii is slipping by every day. Becomes more international, more cosmopolitan, and what we have that's really Hawaiian, like Ni Hao or the Leeward Hawaiian Islands, stuff that can be considered very essential, integral to Kamakawiwo'ole identity. People need to pay closer attention. And I think there's a tendency nowadays to hang out in the back and let people speak for you. Or there's only one dominant thought that needs to be presented, because that's the only way we're going to impact this. So there needs to be a more welcome appreciation of different ideas, different perspective, different thought patterns. It's the only way you're going to entice younger people to get involved, is if they feel that their feelings are being taken into consideration and appreciated and implemented in some sort of way. Because the kids nowadays, they get that whole social media thing and everything else happening where they don't have to really get involved. You can get involved through other people's involvement, kind of like. It's a kind of disconnect in a way. I think what the Hawaiians need to do, and they have been with charter schools and what have you, is get the young Hawaiians involved in their Hawaiianness. Without people telling them what it should be or what it needs to be. Let them discover on their own. Just give them an avenue, a vehicle, the knowledge to go about discovering for themselves. Music is, they say, the universal language, right? So you can attract more people with honey than vinegar. So if you can attract people through your music by presenting something that's appealing to them, then hopefully there's an avenue for you to present something that's maybe disconcerting or uncomfortable in a certain way, but it's presented within this comfort zone of music, so people don't feel as intimidated by it, what have you. So I think that's one important vehicle of music. You don't even have to understand what the Italian guy is singing, but through the timbre of his voice and the melody that's presenting, you can get a general idea. And what Hawaiians have language. Hawaiians have their culture. They don't have much land. whatever they have. I don't know how Bumpy did his thing in Waimanalo, but I think that's important in what he's doing there. But in ways that are common to everyone, speech, music, love of family. There are all different sorts of avenues that can be utilized to advance the interests of the Hawaiian community. And it doesn't only have to include Hawaiians, because I don't think OHA predicted by the year 2026 or what have you, no more full-blooded Hawaiians. It's all part Hawaiians, So, and then Hawaiian Homes is getting their thing about how much percentage of Hawaiian blood to transfer your property. If I'm Hawaiian, my kids are living here, but my wife don't have Hawaiian, then all my kids are half of what I was. And that's going to be a strong battle. It can either bring the Hawaiian community together, or it can really, put the community into uproar and fighting against each other. People who have 75% Hawaiian have been waiting generations to get Hawaiian homes. And this guy whose kids are 12% Hawaiian, he wants to transfer his property to his children. What's right? It's not for me to say. I'm not Hawaiian. It's for the Hawaiians to come together without insulting and alienating each other to work these things out. I'm not saying outsiders' influence is not important, but they need. That's in one instance where they need to be real self-centered and self-interest and selfish. Is that this is something that deals only with us. So we will listen to you folks, but the final decision is going to be ours. Whether legislature goes along with them or not, that's another thing. But I see that as a battle in the near future that's going to define where Hawaiians are, as far as supporting various things that impact the Hawaiians today. The blood issue is very sensitive, talking about family and children and stuff. I remember much alcohol in the valley. I know there was some, but it wasn't in your face. We were a reflection of the community. So it's like we weren't saints and nuns and priests from the neighborhood parish who gathered at Kalama Valley. We had all the vices of your community.
Everyday people.
I'm everyday people. I think that went along the whole Hawaiian identity thing. Identifying the Kalama Valley struggle as a Hawaiian issue. Not just a local issue, but as a Hawaiian issue. And at that time, the whole ethnic studies future was in doubt. So that was another issue that Kokua Hawaii, from its past and its involvements, could get behind and rally behind and entice other people to support their efforts as well. So I remember the house, I don't know what else to call them, but the Kaimuki house was involved, but I don't remember them having any kind of leadership role in it. You're having a rally for ethnic studies at the UH Campus Center, and everybody was there that was involved in Kalama Valley, Kokua Hawaii, ethnic studies, what have you. And I was solicited to represent Kokua Hawaii and talk about how ethnic studies related to our local communities. So of course, being the neophyte and not having much political ideology, as soon as I opened my mouth, I probably contradicted a lot of people. But I was told I did a good job, and we marched from there to Bachman Hall. Yeah, we went up Bachman Hall and occupied somebody's office, I think for a couple of days at least. Hamilton. Was that it? So anyway, that whole episode there is very cloudy. I feel like, we're recruiting you so we can train you and give you the ideology so that you can go out into your community and organize people. I never really felt that was my role. I think you could take your experiences at Kalama Valley and have it guide you in various ways through your career or hobbies or how you presented yourself in whatever way you could in the community. After Kalama Valley, I think I was involved in not Ota Camp, but the Halava struggle for a ways. There was something happening in Waimanalo too, wasn't there? Okay. And then after a while, I just, I didn't say lost interest. I just felt I needed to express myself individually. And ever since then, I've been of the mind that you don't really have to belong to a group or say that you represent this ideology or another. It's how you conduct yourself more than what you say affects people. So if you can be the kind of person that does what you say, and then in regards to that, you're sensitive to other people's emotions and feelings. You can impact people in all kind of different ways, besides just being a member of Kokua Hawaii or, Young Democrats for a Free Hawaii or whatever it may be. We get our language, our dance, our music. There's other things we can work on resurrecting or getting more of or whatever it is, but start with the basics and try to not only preserve that, but give it life, so it survives in the real world. Keep Hawaii Hawaiian.